UK editor, Paul Brand, joins me now. A very good morning to you, Paul. We've talked to you so many times this week, but here we are. The moment of reckoning actually happened. What struck me, and I tweeted about it, was why was Liz Truss smiling as she was resigning? It was just so incongruous with the gravity of the moment, Paul.
Yeah, morning, Ranveer. They say a week's a long time in politics, right? I mean, we use that cliche all the time, but my goodness, it feels a long time since I spoke to you, even on Wednesday, never mind Monday of this week. And yeah, I think Liz Truss was giving off quite sort of strong cheese vibes, wasn't she, when she did that speech yesterday? Remember that speech she gave about cheese that's now become this infamous sort of meme about her? And I think it probably speaks more to her, if I'm being brutally honest, her lack of sort of emotional awareness, really. I think that is Liz Truss being told, put a brave face on it, go out there, be positive, don't, look upset. And so she was smiling probably to try and conceal how she's really feeling inside. And because she doesn't have a great grasp of emotional awareness, it probably came across as a little bit odd.
It was very odd.
But hey, I mean, that was part of the problem with her premiership. She just didn't quite have those communication skills.
Well, absolutely. And lots of people on my Twitter feed were going, well, I think she's smiling because she's got this £115,000 a year that Prime Ministers get. Now, can you clear this up for us? Because it is going to enrage people if they think that somebody who tanked the pound, trashed the economy in a matter of 44 days and wasn't there to mop up the mess, gets away with taking a great chunk of taxpayers' money with her when she goes.
Yeah, it's about £2,500 for every day that she served in office that she's going to get every year for the rest of her working life. It's something called the Public Duties Cost Allowance. It was set up under Margaret Thatcher, and the allowance is £115,000 per year, and the idea is that that helps a former Prime Minister to run their office. It's something that all Prime Ministers have claimed along the way, and we've seen Prime Ministers go on to set up offices. Gordon Brown's got a big charitable foundation, so he needs some help running his office. Tony Blair, of course, has done all sorts of things. Probably doesn't need the money, to be fair. But all Prime Ministers have used this, and of course the controversy with Liz Truss is because she served such a short amount of time. Is it really fair that she will claim it? I reckon she probably will, because what she got to lose, I mean, she's not got any ambitions left, has she, really, to climb the political ladder, so she doesn't need to worry about the controversy, and maybe this is her one shot now at trying to do something constructive with the rest of her career, to go away, set up an office and work on something she cares about.
Well, it's extraordinary, and I think it sticks in the throat of many people this morning, to be honest with you, Paul. And many people are just, the memes are hilarious if they weren't so tragic. We've got Love Island was longer than Liz Truss in power. That's one of the things going around. Jedward saying that they lasted longer on X Factor than Liz Truss as a Prime Minister. And, of course, the national anthem was played when the lettuce eventually won that contest. We've got Larry the cat as well, Paul. Larry for PM. Lots of people are saying outside number 10, but yawning, bored of the whole drama. But listen, we've heard from Stanley Johnson on GMB this morning, confirming, it seemed to me, that Boris Johnson is indeed on a flight back to the UK. What does that mean?
Yeah, Stanley Johnson didn't appear to know the ins and outs of what Boris Johnson's up to, but he did give a pretty strong hint that his son might be on his way back to the UK to throw his hat into the ring and try and return as Prime Minister, which would be an extraordinary feat. One source close to Boris Johnson said this morning he'll do not what's in the national interest, but in Boris Johnson's interest. And I wonder, it's a difficult path for him, but I wonder whether actually this becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy now, because there'll be such a circus, such excitement about the possibility of him returning, because it's such a fascinating story. And he's so good at putting himself in the heart of all of that and grabbing the limelight and the headlines and the attention, that I just wonder whether that momentum is going to build now. And I think there's a really quite high chance that he will return as Prime Minister, but there is a concerted effort, a very concerted effort, among MPs to stop him from doing that. So the big question is whether they can get their act together and stop him from getting very far in the contest. Yeah,
well, what's interesting about him coming back, apart from, the comment about his ego potentially, is that he is the one who actually did win an election. He had a majority, had 80, a big majority in the Houses of Parliament. So in terms of them trying to justify another coronation, he's the only one really that could possibly get away with it. But we had a Twitter poll last night about whether people want a general election, and it's true on all polls this morning, 88% of our viewers certainly say they want there to be a general election. What's your view on that in terms of what's the mechanism that would force that to happen, and what's the danger of that happening?
Yeah, I can understand the sentiment because, of course, yet again, it will be a very small number of Conservative members, maybe only just MPs. It might not even get to the members who choose our next Prime Minister on behalf of 65 million people. It's difficult to see a mechanism at the moment. I wonder whether actually Boris Johnson returning is the most likely route to a general election, because MPs are saying to me that they will resign from the party or they'll defect to Labour, and they might actually manage to reduce his majority enough that he's in a difficult position as Prime Minister and has to call an election or is forced into an election. So the whole thing will become quite volatile, I think, if he returns. He's certainly not going to be the unity candidate, but of course Sir Keir Starmer is arguing that he wants an election because he's ahead in the polls, and every party here is doing what's in its interests. But at the moment, I think we're more likely to have a Prime Minister chosen for us by the Conservative Party than we are to have one chosen by all of us as voters.
Yeah, there you go. And I suppose the thing is that it's the sitting government, only the Prime Minister can call a general election, and that really would be like turkeys voting for Christmas, wouldn't it, for the Tories right now?
Exactly, because they're looking at the same polls that Sir Keir Starmer's looking at, and they're thinking the last thing we want is to be wiped out. I mean, some of the polls were having the Conservatives down on their lowest ever number of MPs, potentially an existential crisis for the party. So they're not going to vote for their own wipeout. And as you say, that you know is the formal mechanism in Parliament, is that the Prime Minister would have to ask MPs to vote for a general election. Who's going to do that? Who's going to sort of commit that act of self-harm when they're so low in the polls? But you know, I think the Tory party are kind of destroying themselves at the moment. They might not need a general election in order to do that if they pick the wrong candidate and end up tearing themselves apart because they just can't agree.
Well, we have another week of drama next week coming up. Paul, have a good rest this weekend. You'll be very busy again, I'm pretty sure. Thanks so much. Always good to talk to you this morning.